Get comfy, John.
Yeah.
We're recording now, Chair.
Yeah,
We are-
audio's on.
We are recording.
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
Chair.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone.
Good
And
evening.
welcome to today's meeting of Gedling Borough Council Planning Committee. My name is Councillor John Truscott and I'm the chair of the committee. Webcasting notice. I must remind you that the audio of this meeting is being live broadcast on the council's website, and the video of the meeting will be published after the meeting and will be available on YouTube. If anybody's interested, last month's YouTube recording has achieved 39 hits so far.
Oh,
Viral.
and were you?
Viral, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to introduce the officers from Gedling Borough Council who will be providing support to the meeting, and they are from the Planning Department, Mike Avery, Assistant Director, Planning and Regeneration. Kevin, I think somebody could do with muting their speaker. I'm getting a lot of popping and crackling. Is everybody muted? It should be muted. Mike Avery, the Assistant Director of Planning and Regeneration. Kevin Cartwright, Principal Planning Officer. Nigel Bryan, also Principal Planning Officer. From our Legal Services Department, we have Sarah Pregon, a solicitor. And from Democratic Services, we have Alec Doubley, Service Manager of Democratic Services, and Caroline McCleary, Democratic Services Officer and Clerk to the committee. Now, a few preliminary notices. All members of the committee, please ensure that their microphones are switched off, muted at all times when they're not required to speak, and only switched on, unmuted, when they're called on to speak, and that they speak clearly and distinctly into their microphones. When a councillor is called on to speak, they'll please limit their contributions to 3 minutes or less in order that everyone gets a fair chance to air their views. Now, changes to normal procedure will include the following. Under apologies for absence and substitutions, the clerk to the committee will introduce all councillors who've registered their attendance, as well as apologies and substitutions. At that point in the agenda, where I would normally ask for a proposer and seconder from the floor, to simplify things, I will propose each item on the agenda as chair, and Councillor Paul Wilkinson will second as vice chair. This is in no way an indication of approval or otherwise to any proposal or application by either of us, but merely a means of expediting the proceedings. When it comes to the point on the agenda when I would normally open up the meeting for contributions from the floor, instead the clerk to the committee will ask councillors in alphabetical order to make their contributions, questions, etc. Please observe the 3-minute time limit when this happens. When it comes to the vote on the recommendation at the end of the item, it will be similarly conducted. And I hope you have all received your supplements to the main agenda papers with the plans, elevations and photos of the various planning applications. Okay, thank you very much. We will go on now to the agenda itself. And I'll ask for apologies for absence and substitutions from the clerk of the committee, please. Caroline.
Thank you, Chair. No apologies have been received for the meeting, so I can confirm that the following councillors are present here at the meeting. We have Councillor Adams, Councillor Barnes, Councillor Barnfather, Councillor David Ellis, Councillor Rachel Ellis, Councillor Elwood, Councillor Hope, Councillor Keneally, Councillor Lawrence, Councillor Miller, Councillor Paling, Councillor Parr, Councillor Scroggy, Councillor Wheeler, Councillor Wilkinson and Councillor Truscott.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 2 on the agenda is to approve as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of August, which you'll find on pages 5 to 22 of your agenda papers. Please speak up if you do not approve of the minutes, so you have some alteration. Nope.
Councillor Truscott, Councillor Hope has raised his hand, so I don't know if he has something to say on that matter.
Yeah, I do. I did it both ways. Very briefly, I'm pretty sure I was at that meeting, but I'm not recorded as being present.
Ah, right. I'm pretty sure you were at that meeting. I seem to remember you, Councillor Hope.
Yes.
If that amendment could be made to the minutes, please, Caroline.
Yes, certainly, Chair. Thank you. That's noted.
Thank you. Next item is Planning Committee protocol, which you'll find on pages 23 to 25 your agenda papers. I can assume you have all read and understood that. Item 3 is declarations of interest. I'm notified that the Edinburgh Council has any particular interest in any of these items. If there's any individual declarations of interest, will you speak up? No? Okay. So the next item on the agenda is agenda item 4, which you'll find on page 28 of your agenda papers, which is application 2019/1031, the Earl of Chesterfield, Carlton Hill, erection of 23 shelter accommodation flats for and 1 office. Mike, if you would like to introduce this item for us, please.
Councillor Truscott, this item is going to be introduced by Mr. Bryan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Since the agenda has been published, there has been one further letter of objection. The letter raises similar concerns to those outlined by other objectors as detailed in paragraph 4.1 of the committee report, and mainly expresses concerns about the scale of the building and level of support to occupiers. However, these matters have been addressed in the committee report. For the avoidance of doubt, amended plans have also been submitted that slightly alter the elevation treatments to the scheme. However, these are relatively minor and have been done to comply with building regulations and fire regulations. And in short, it would just include the insertion of a door to a stairwell as a means of escape, which would be on the Carlton Road elevation. This requires an update to some of the draft, one draft condition in terms of the approved drawing. So I'll just briefly run through those just for clarity. Drawing P102 would now be revision G. Drawing P210 would now be revision D. Drawing P211 would now be revision D. And drawing P12 would be revision C. And drawing P213 would be revision D. In all of those respects, the recommendation remains the same. The application site is currently vacant following the demolition of the Earl of Chesterfield Public House. It occupies a prominent position within the streetscape, being on the corner of Carlton Hill and South Cliff Road. The application comprises the erection of 23 flats that were all intended to be affordable rent and under the control of a registered social landlord. An office was proposed to be on the site, and some vulnerable people may be occupied with an element of supervision, but not to the degree where a full-time presence of staff would be required. It is not to be operated as a hostel, rather as conventional flats. In terms of built form, it would be 3-storey on the Carlton Road frontage and 2-storey towards South Cliff Road. Parking would be provided towards the east of the site adjacent to Carlton House. The design of the built form is considered to respect the character of the area, taking into account the scale of neighbouring built form. Permission has also previously been granted for a building that was 3-storey on the site facing Carlton Hill. Parking provision is slightly below what would normally be required for open market schemes, but given the site's location adjacent to a bus stop and good access to services, this is considered to be acceptable. Significant weight should be given to the fact that the scheme is to be 100% affordable housing, which is to be secured through a legal agreement, a unilateral undertaking, with a recognised shortfall in the district. Taking into account the above, is considered development would bring back into use an otherwise vacant site with an appropriately designed building that would enhance the character of the area as well as respect residential amenity. Furthermore, highway safety would be respected and a number of affordable units would be secured. As a result, it is recommended that the application be granted permission, subject to the conditions outlined on pages 36 to 39 of the agenda, with the updated condition 2 as outlined previously, and subject to a legal agreement being entered to secure the units as 100% affordable. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Nigel. So there we have it. The site of the Earl of Chesterfield, erection of 23 sheltered accommodation flats with 1 office. I will move that.
Seconded, Chair.
And thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. You second that. So then we move to the virtual debate. Caroline, would you like to go through the list of councillors in alphabetical order, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Adams.
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Councillor Barnes.
I think this is a nice development for that type of area. We do need that sort of a property and that sort of accommodation for the youngsters who are coming onto the housing market. So I think it makes a lot of sense to put that in that place. There's plenty of activities, job-wise, transport's useful. I think it's a very good site for that kind of property. Thank you very much.
Councillor Barnfather.
Yes, thank you. I welcome the provision of the sheltered accommodation and I'm happy with the application. Thank you.
Councillor David Ellis.
Thank you. Yes, I welcome this application. We had doubts when it was previous application about the viability of the shops. This is an improvement, so I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Rachel Ellis.
Yes, sorry about that. Yes, I also welcome this. I think there is a distinct need for social housing and sheltered accommodation in particular. So I'm happy with this.
Councillor Elwood.
No further comments to make on this application. Thank you.
Councillor Hope. Councillor Hope.
It's switched off, I think.
It's because it's switched off. No problem.
Thank you. Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. Do you have any, Councillor Hope, do you have any comments?
Sorry, I thought you said you could hear me. I said no comments.
Sorry, I can hear you. Sorry, I can hear you now. Do you have any comments?
No comments.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Keneally.
Yes, I'm in support of this.
Thank you. Councillor Lawrence.
Yes, I wholeheartedly support this. Thank you.
Councillor Miller.
Yes, I'm all for it. I think it's an ideal thing. I've actually looked at them and I think we do need the single housing flats, but they're very, very attractive and well built. I welcome the application.
Thank you. Councillor Paling.
Thank you. I welcome this application too. It's much improved on the previous one. I can't see any problem for the members of the sheltered housing on South Cliff Drive. They did, in the previous application, make quite a lot of fuss about wanting access directly through the properties to Carlton Hill to save them a long walk. I think it looks as though that will be definitely possible. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Parr.
Happy to support the application and no further comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sproggie.
No comment to make.
Councillor Wheeler.
I think it's a brilliant idea. 100% support this. It will provide desperately needed affordable sheltered accommodation. So it's got my full support. Thank you.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Caroline. Yeah, I know this site well. It's in my ward, and since the Earl of Chesterfield has been demolished, it's been a bit of a blot on the landscape. I'm sure members will recall that we recently had to take out a prosecution for some fly tipping on the land. So it's great to see. It will be great to see that this moves ahead. Those of us who were on the committee at the time of the previous application, although there were no planning reasons to refuse it, probably many of us were not that thrilled with it and had some concerns about its overall viability. So I think this is a marked improvement. I did have some concerns about potential overlooking of Carlton House, but I'm pleased to say I've had reassurances regarding this, so I'm happy to support.
Thank you. Councillor Truscott.
Yes, thank you. This is obviously an excellent development, and as councillors Ellis, Paling and Wilkinson have all already mentioned, it is a great improvement on the original design that was submitted to it, and I'm certainly going to approve it.
Thank you. Would anyone like to come back?
No.
Thank you. It's over to you, Chair.
Okay, well, you have the recommendation on page 36 of your agenda papers. Subject to the owner entrance into section 106 planning obligations and all the rest of the details that Nigel has already mentioned. So what's the result of the vote?
So
we've got to take the vote.
We take the vote.
We've got to take the vote.
Take the vote. Thank you, Chair. So Councillor Adams.
He's switched off.
Councillor Adams. Have we lost Councillor Adams? I'll move to we'll see if we can get Councillor Adams back. If I move to Councillor Barnes.
Support the application.
Thank you. Councillor Barnfather.
For.
Councillor David Ellis.
For.
Councillor Rachel Ellis.
For.
Councillor Elwood.
For.
Councillor Hope.
For.
Councillor Keneally.
For.
Councillor Lawrence.
For.
Councillor Miller.
For.
Councillor Paling.
For.
Councillor Parr.
For.
Councillor Scroggy.
For.
Councillor Wheeler.
For.
Councillor Wilkinson.
For.
Councillor Truscott.
For.
Thank you, that's carried.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Let's go on to item 5 on the agenda.
Chair, just before you go on to that item, I'm just going to try and invite Councillor Adams back into the meeting. So if you could just bear with me one moment while I try and do that. No, there was no response, Chair, so I don't know if you want to carry on or whether you want to give it any more time. That's up to you.
Is his camera still on? Can you see?
So he's actually dropped out of the meeting, Chair, altogether.
Okay.
So not just having the camera off.
If he's dropped out of the meeting, that's fair enough. Let's move on to item 5, shall we? Which you'll find on page 42 of your agenda papers, which is application 2020/0020 Land Northwest Park Road, Calverton, application for the approval reserved matters application 351 dwellings. We have a speaker, do we not? Mr. Chris Gowlett, the applicant from Persimmon Homes. Is Chris Gowlett with us this evening?
Hello.
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 Okay, good evening, Mr. Gowlett. If you'd like to make your presentation, please, you've got just 3 minutes, and
Yep.
you know, I apologise in advance if I have to cut you off in mid-flow.
Sorry, Chair, just to say as well, Councillor Adams is now back.
Are you there, Mike? Mike Adams?
Yes, I am. Sorry, my internet crashed, Chair. It's
Do
back
you
up
mind
now.
that we have gone on to the next item on the agenda?
Right, lovely. Okay,
You okay?
thank you very much. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, Mr. Gowlett, it's yours.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully you can all hear me. Thank you for the opportunity to speak for a couple of minutes in support of this application. My name is Chris Gowlett. I'm a chartered planner employed by Persimmon Homes, the applicant and prospective builder of the site. Persimmon are here to build some high quality new homes, invest in the local community, provide new homes for new and growing families, and help and do our bit to solve the national and regional housing crisis. This application before you is the last in a 5-year-long journey to date of promotion through the local plan, outline planning, and obviously the reserve matters before you today. The principle is therefore already established for residential, and we're here to consider the design of the layout and the house types. The master plan approving the outline restricted the design to a number of parameters which have been kept to. Lengthy internal design process is undergone to ensure the scheme is deliverable and respectful of the surrounding areas and character of the village. This has led to a pre-application meeting where we received support from the officers after a number of changes were then made. And the scheme before you has strong street scenes, plenty of off-street parking and landscaping to all the plots, dual frontages to ensure appropriate surveillance of all the public areas, and strong design termination points. The large open spaces are approved on the scheme, a formal area and an informal area to provide a wide range of amenity. 351 houses are proposed, of which are a mixture of house sizes, 2, 3, 4, 5 beds, 70 of which will be mixed tenure affordable housing. The Section 106 approved an outline captured a wide number of off-site investment in the infrastructure, including healthcare, education, and a bus service. And we've also accounted for the safeguarded land to the north to ensure that's released at the appropriate time for housing also. There has been very little objection from the statutory consultees and as well as the surrounding area from neighbours, showing the level of support in Calverton for the site. There's significant investment which would only concern really raise the infrastructure. As previously mentioned, there will be investment as part of the 106 package. So a lot of effort has been undertaken to get to this stage, and we're in a strong position to start delivering housing in a sustainable location from 2021. It shows commitment from the business to ensure that new housing is delivered for a variety of households. The application complies with all the relevant planning policy, so I urge all councillors to support the recommendation of the strong officers' report and approve the scheme before you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gowlett. Now, would the case officer, is Nigel going to introduce this application?
Councillor Truscott, I will introduce this application. Thank you.
Okay.
So the principle of residential development and access from Park Road and Collier Road has been established through the grant of outline planning permission, which remains extant. The application seeks approval of the reserved matters of layout, scale, landscaping and appearance only. The development would comprise of 351 dwellings and would include 70 affordable units as required by the Section 106 agreement. The layout has taken into account the Calverton Neighbourhood Plan in that it provides open space adjacent to existing properties on North Green. Furthermore, the broad principles of the design are considered to be followed in that the main areas of open space are overlooked, the development is largely outward facing, and there are focal buildings at key nodes. With regards to scale, all of the dwellings will either be 2-storey or 2.5-storey, which I consider to be appropriate for the context of the site. A material schedule has been provided and identifies a mix of red and buff bricks properties and render, with red bricks predominant. The external appearance of the dwellings will be reflective of other dwellings recently constructed in the area, including along Flats Lane. A detailed landscaping scheme has been submitted in support of the application. Notably, a large section of hedgerow is to be removed along the southern boundary of the application site fronting Park Road to allow a 2-metre wide footway along this boundary. However, replacement planting is proposed to try and replicate the green frontage. The vast majority of existing vegetation is to be retained. Within the main section of the site, the landscaping details are largely domestic in form, but with sporadic trees and frontages to break up the built form and create its own green character. The open spaces will be largely grassed, public open spaces will be largely grassed with trees interspersed. I'm of the opinion that the application achieves a high standard of design in accordance with the development plan, and I recommend that approval of reserved matters is granted, subject to the conditions set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. So there you have it on page 42, land north of Park Road, Calverton, application reserved matters 351 dwellings. I will move that application.
And I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Would Caroline, would you like to open the list of councillors alphabetically?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Adams.
Nothing to add, thank you.
Councillor Barnes.
Yes, I support this application. I just want to ask a couple of questions actually. I just hope that when the properties are occupied, that there's some management and making sure that people look after the property. We've had 1 or 2 problems in Calvin, which I know of, which sometimes the housing association not done what I consider doing the right job in managing the property. I just hope that is going to be altered and make sure that it's done correctly. In principle, I agree with the planning application, so I support it. Thank you.
Councillor Barnfather.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Obviously, this is a reserved matters application, so the principle of the building on this site has already been established. I'm delighted to see that mature trees are to be retained wherever possible, as this still is, despite all the building that's happening in our villages, it's still a rural area, and as much as possible it's good that we should retain that rural characteristic. But I support the application.
Thank you. Councillor David Ellis.
Thank you. I noticed that there are no bungalows proposed, but I don't think that's a deal breaker, so I'm happy to support this, and I'm pleased that the speaker from Persimmon said that they'll be able to get underway next year. We need to move on these as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Councillor Rachel Ellis.
Yes, thank you. I'm generally in favour. Just got a query. I'm pleased to see that when the hedgerow is removed, it's going to be replanted and there's going to be a pedestrian walkway, which obviously is going to add to pedestrian safety. I did wonder, in current conditions, whether consideration had or could be given to making that a joint cycle path and pedestrian footpath. Just throwing that out there. Thank you.
Mr. Bryan, do you have any comment in relation to that suggestion in terms of whether there is potential for that to be a cycleway as well? It doesn't appear to be the case in regard to the proposed plans.
The Highway Authority have only asked for it to be a pedestrian as opposed to a cycle link. So my understanding it is just to be that.
Thank you. Councillor Elwood.
No further comments. Thank you.
Councillor Hope.
Just 1 or 2 minor observations. I'm very aware that this is reserved matters. So maybe these are not appropriate. I don't know, but Mr. Bryan said that the people of Calverton were strongly in favour of this development, and he couldn't be further from the truth. You know, the fact of the matter that a good 95% of the people of Calverton are wholly opposed to this development, but they recognise that it's been driven through. And another point is that when you talk about a master plan, and our officers have said the layout accords with the indicative layout and master plan. Well, that isn't what a master plan is. A master plan is a plan for the whole development. There's a huge area there. We've put an awful lot of it into safeguarding. Fair enough. But let's get, and this is what the neighbourhood plan was all about, and it's been ignored, and I'm sure it will be ignored again in the future, but let's get a plan for the whole site. You don't have to develop it all, but you have to know what's going to happen to it as a whole. What we've actually got here is a medium-sized development. It's not got a master plan, it's got a plan for the development. Let's be honest about it. Don't start talking about it conforming with the master plan, because there never was one. There was an outline for development. And in fact, the only real change to the original plan that Persimmon had put forward was Gedlingborough refusing to allow them access from the Oxton Road because it went across the safeguarded land for which there is no plan. And that is going to cause the people of Calverton no end of problems, because unless Persimmon are able to negotiate some sort of access off the Oxton Road, every single lorry, every single brick, every single bag of cement is going to be delivered down Collier Road and Park Road, and it's going to affect all of the people who live there. When there's a perfectly good access off the Oxton Road, if we, as a borough council, had agreed to them using that access. Yeah. So when you say Calverton is in support of this, they most certainly are not. They don't actually want any more houses. But that's common across a lot of villages, and I understand that, and I understand we need houses. But don't start saying they support it. The second thing is, let's stop using words like master plan incorrectly. A master plan is much bigger than the outline of the development, when there's loads of other land around that development, which is going to happen. And that's in the hands of somebody else now. And how they join together is in the hands of somebody else. But you, as a planning committee, have got it fixed in your mind that that area is going to have houses. And I can't think of many developments that you're going to refuse. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
Councillor Keneally.
Nothing further to add. Thank you.
Councillor Lawrence.
Yes, I support this application. As has already been said, the principle of development has been long accepted. The only thing that I'd like more information on is, where is the affordable housing going? I've looked at page 9. I haven't got of the plans that were sent. I can't see any difference between that and the site layout, but then I think I'd need a powerful magnifying glass to actually look at it. So I'm wondering if you could put that slide up on the screen so I could identify exactly where the affordable housing is going.
I can address that. On one of the plans that hopefully Kevin's going to put on in a minute, there's the layout shows the affordable units that have red dots on them. So hopefully that'll be coming up just now. Yeah, so you can see there that all of those units that have got the red dot are going to be affordable. And I think they're grouped roughly around 9 to 10, that kind of pepper potting. So I think we're quite content in terms of the mix of the affordable.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to know, because I do know that other developments that have promised pepper potting have not actually carried them out. So I'm pleased to see that has happened. So I've got no qualms in supporting this application.
Thank you. Councillor Miller.
I am in support of the recommendation. I think there's been a lot of controversy about this, but we do need the houses, and I'm in full support of the recommendation to grant reserve matters approval.
Councillor Paling.
Thank you. I'm fully in support of this application. My initial comment was, let's get on with it. I do have some sympathy with Councillor Hope in that I recognise that it's up to the developers when they see that we put some land in the local plan, whether they want to come forward to develop a part of it or all of it. It would be nice if we could do it some other way, but we can't. Thank you.
Councillor Parr.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I support the application and I've nothing more to say about it.
Thank you. Councillor Scroggy.
Yeah, obviously I just echo what Councillor Barnfather said. It's, you know, it's vital that we keep some green stuff in the development, you know, a new hedgerow to help the wildlife. So I'll support this.
Councillor Wheeler.
Yeah, fully support the recommendations, particularly the bit around 70 affordable houses being built there. That's very welcome, although there's room for more, could do with some more actually. And I am also really happy that they're going to replace the hedgerow there. I hope that when they do replace that, it's, you know, like for like in terms of biodiversity to help the wildlife. Thank you.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Caroline. Yeah, as again, any comments I would want to make have been made by others, so no further comments.
Councillor Truscott.
Yes, I support this application and I agree with the sentiments already expressed by other councillors that, you know, if Persimmon can start building houses next year, so much the better, because we certainly need them. I'll support this application.
Thank you. Would anyone like to come back on any of the comments?
Move it.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. If I pass back to you now.
Yeah, well, we go to the vote now, don't we?
We do, yes, if you're happy to do so. So Councillor Adams.
For, thank you.
Councillor Barnes.
For.
Councillor Barnfather.
For.
Councillor David Ellis.
For.
Councillor Rachel Ellis.
For.
Councillor Elwood.
For.
Councillor Hope. Do we have Councillor Hope?
A cup of tea.
Councillor Hope, I think you're on mute.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, I'm here now. I've been
Thank
trying
you.
to press the and it didn't do it.
Thank you.
I'm abstaining on this one.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Keneally.
For.
Councillor Lawrence.
For.
Councillor Miller.
For.
Councillor Paling.
For.
Councillor Parr.
For.
Councillor Scroggy.
For.
Councillor Wheeler.
For.
Councillor Wilkinson.
For.
And Councillor Truscott.
For.
Thank you, Chair. That's carried.
Okay, thank you very much. Now let's move on to the next item on the agenda. Agenda item 6, which you'll find on page 56 of your agenda papers, which is application number 2019/0435, land at the corner of Stamhill Road, 3rd Avenue, Carlton, proposed construction of 9 dwellings. We do have a speaker for this one, Pauline Eady, who is a resident objector. Is Pauline Eady with us?
Oh, sorry. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, thank you.
Can't see you yet.
Oh, you should be able to.
Yes. Yes, see you now.
All right,
Excellent.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, the floor is yours for the next 3 minutes.
Thank you. Just a few key points. I'm speaking on behalf of my neighbours. As you know, we had about 30 letters of complaint for the development and also a petition with maybe over 100 signatures. We are still concerned about the density and the height of the buildings, which are not in keeping with those around them. We're concerned with road safety and the pinch points coming off Highfields Avenue and also at the top of Sandhill Avenue, which are single track. They have no pavements. 3rd Avenue next to the development is unadopted and in a poor state of repair. Some of the responsibility for that will lie with the developer. There's no street lighting and no pavements, and drainage is poor. So we are concerned about that because of safety. We also have concerns about the removal of some trees, which are cited on the plans as meeting the needs for privacy, but then in your meeting reports, they have been described as not worth keeping. So we would like some clarity on that. We also have outstanding questions on the knotweed, which I think has been checked by the Environment Agency, but there is a very large mound of earth that's been left on the site, and we're actually wondering what's going on underneath there. So we would appreciate it if those issues were taken into consideration. I think particularly the state of the unadopted road and the safety issues. So that is really what I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Is Mike, is an officer going to speak to this?
I will introduce this report, Councillor Truscott.
Thank you very much.
So each of the proposed dwellings are 2-storey houses and are either detached or semi-detached. A pair of semi-detached dwellings are proposed to the western corner of the site with 2 car parking spaces accessed from Standhill Avenue. Private drive is also proposed from Standhill Avenue to access the remainder of the development. A pair of semi-detached dwellings are proposed to the west of the site. 5 dwellings are proposed to run parallel with 3rd Avenue with their rear elevations facing towards 3rd Avenue. So essentially the back gardens would be adjacent to 3rd Avenue. The site's located within the built-up area of Carlton, and therefore the principle of residential development is considered to be acceptable. The prevailing character of the area is mixed, and I consider that the appearance of the proposed properties is appropriate. And while the density is higher than that of the surrounding dwellings, I do not consider that this will cause harm. The development will therefore be policy compliant. Each of the proposed dwellings would have 2 off-street car parking spaces, and while there are 3 fewer than the requirement set out in Appendix D of the local planning document, the Highways Authority is content with the provision given the location of the site, which is close to local services and has good access to public transport. I'm content that the proposal is in conformity with local and national policies, and I recommend that permission is granted in accordance with the report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mike. Right, there we have it. The application 2019/0435, London corner of Sandhill Avenue. I will move that application.
And I'll second it, Chair.
Thank you very much. Caroline, if you'd like to read the councillors' names off for us, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Councillor Adams.
Yes, thank you. Happy to support. No further comments.
Councillor Barnes.
Move the recommendation.
Councillor Barnfather.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Every planning application has implications for existing residential owners and occupiers. But in fairness, I think officers have tried their best to work with the applicant here to make this development as acceptable as possible on a site that is clearly in need of being developed. So I do support that.
Thank you. Councillor David Ellis.
Thank you. I'd echo what Councillor Barnfather said. This is a site that needs developing. The initial proposal was for 13 dwellings, which would have come to planning. You'll see from the report that the delegation panel felt this ought to come to committee, despite it being under the 10. I think officers have worked well with the developer, and I think they've addressed the most of the concerns, particularly access to 3rd Avenue. So I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Councillor Rachel Ellis.
No further comments to make, thank you.
Councillor Elwood.
Thank you. I'd just like some clarification from the officers maybe on the comments from the Highways Authority. Apologies, I probably should have inquired about this before the meeting, but do their comments refer to the highway safety on the adopted highway, or the highway in general? Because obviously on this near this development there is unadopted highway, and that is obviously an issue for some of the residents. So just a little bit of clarification on whether the comments that highway have made to us would really refer to the whole site, or maybe just the existing adopted highway. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Elwood. So the application has been assessed by the Highways Authority, and the case officer has been back to the Highways Authority having regard to concerns which have been raised by local residents. But in answer to your question, the Highways Authority will have considered the application as a whole, and it should be noted that while 3rd Avenue isn't an adopted highway, no access is proposed to be taken directly from 3rd Avenue. So this application, so the access arrangements and the proposed car parking provision have been considered by the Highways Authority.
Councillor Hope.
Yeah, now you should get me now. Just to follow up on that point, so what you're saying is that 3rd Avenue is going to continue to be unadopted, but there is no reason for it to be used for access to this site at all. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's correct, Councillor Hope.
Right. So the questions about flooding and traffic on 3rd Avenue just won't occur because nobody will be using it. I'm sure the residents will make a note of that. I've got nothing more to say. Thank you.
Councillor Keneally.
Yeah, I'm in support of this application. Thank you.
Councillor Lawrence.
No comment other than to support the application.
Councillor Miller.
I support the application.
Councillor Paling.
I support the application. I had wondered from the earlier application if we could condition that improvements to 3rd Avenue were made, as the developer, stroke owner, also owns 3rd Avenue, but as no access is going to be expected rather than, I would say, used, I doubt that's possible. Do you have a comment, Mike?
That wouldn't be reasonable. So the vehicular access point is taken from Standhill Avenue, so there's no proposed vehicular access from 3rd Avenue. The scheme has been designed so that the access wouldn't be taken from that unmade road. So in answer to your question, it wouldn't be reasonable to secure improvements to 3rd Avenue.
Thank you. I thought not.
Councillor Parr.
Thank you, Chair. I have no additional comment to make, but support the application.
Councillor Scroggy.
Yeah, thank you, Caroline. I've just got a couple of comments to make. I am glad that the development has come down in size from the original application. However, I'm still unsure about this site. You know, the issues around the disposal of the Japanese knotweed, the 3rd Avenue unadopted road. I've been on that road. I've parked on that road, and you know, I just don't think it's suitable for that scale. Even though I agree that the site should be built on, I just think that the development should be a lot smaller. So whereas I'm not against development, I can't support this application, so I will abstain from it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wheeler.
Support the application. No further comments. Thank you.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Caroline. Yeah, I think this application, you know, shows the value of an excellent planning department. So I just want to congratulate the team for being able to work with the developer to produce an acceptable scheme. Thank you.
Councillor Truscott.
Yes, I support this development, and has already been mentioned by other councillors. It's a huge improvement on the previous proposal that we saw, and just shows what can be done when the applicants and the planning department work together. So I will fully support this.
Thank you. Would anyone like to come back? Thank you. Over to you, Chair.
Okay. The recommendation, which you find on page 66, is to grant planning permission subject to conditions. Would you like to take the vote?
Thank you. Councillor Adams.
4.
Councillor Barnes.
4.
Councillor Barnfather.
4.
Councillor David Ellis.
4.
Councillor Rachel Ellis.
4.
Councillor Elwood.
4.
Councillor Hope.
Just missing again.
4.
Councillor Keneally.
4.
Councillor Lawrence.
4.
Councillor Miller.
4.
Councillor Paling.
4.
Councillor Parr.
4.
Councillor Scroggy.
Abstain.
Councillor Wheeler.
4.
Councillor Wilkinson.
4.
Councillor Truscott.
4.
Thank you, Chair. That's carried.
Okay, thank you very much. That application is approved. So we move on to agenda item 7 on page 74 of your agenda papers. Application 2020/0545, land at Chase Farm. Adjacent final name, redesign of the landscape for the urban square. An officer going to speak to this, or shall we simply proceed on the information that we've got?
Just got a few words to say, if that's all right, Chair.
Thank you.
The application for the redesign of a previously approved urban square in association with the Chase Farm development. During the course of the application, amended plans have been received that update the play equipment to be more robust in terms of materials, which is welcome. The urban square would now be greener in appearance with greater planting and will serve an active central focal point for the site. We'll have numerous pieces of play equipment and street furniture to enhance the usability of the space. The character of the area will be respected, and its design is considered to be acceptable and will enhance the character of the area as well as comply with the approved master plan. As a result, it is recommended the application granted permission subject to entering into a deed of variation, amending the sections 106 legal agreement approved under reference 2015-1376. The recommendation is as outlined on page 77 of the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, redesign landscaping of the urban square. I'll move that application. Councillor Wilkinson.
Apologies, Chair. I wasn't quite ready there. I was second.
Okay, Caroline, would you like to Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Adams.
Yes, thank you, Caroline. I like this. I'm always a fan of improving of more hedging and more green space. I think it's, by the sound of the application, it's become a lot more accessible to a lot more people, a lot more usable by a lot more people across a number of different age groups, which again, I'm massively in favour on. All these spaces should be appropriate for all and accessible for all and usable for all. And I must also say, I'm really glad to see that we are making this out of metal, the play equipment. Again, you know, a big issue like we've experienced across the borough has been vandalism of our play parks. Specifically, Arnold Park was vandalised not so long ago. And, you know, we all wish it wasn't so that happened, but it does happen, unfortunately. And so I'm glad to see the metal is there. It obviously lasts longer, and that initial expense isn't having to be replicated as a result of vandals. Really glad to see exercise equipment as well. Again, you know, let's get people outdoors and in the sunshine when it's there. Very much approve of the way that it's been thought about and rethought about in order to, like I say, be accessible to all. So yeah, I'll be in favour of this today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes.
Move the recommendation, supported wholeheartedly. It's nice to get some recreation area for youngsters and get them off the street playing properly. So I think that's a good point. Thank you.
Councillor Barnfather.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I echo Councillor Adams' comments, and it's always good to see more open green spaces instead of open concrete spaces, so I welcome the changes.
Councillor David Ellis.
Like others, I think this is an improvement on the previous plans and we'll be supporting it. Thank you.
Councillor Rachel Ellis.
I'd like to echo what has been said by other councillors. I welcome this improvement. Thank you.
Councillor Elwood.
No further comments. Thank you.
Councillor Hope.
I've got no further comments. It seems a good idea.
Councillor Keneally.
I think this is really positive and I fully support it.
Councillor Lawrence.
I support the recommendation.
Councillor Miller.
In support of the recommendation.
Councillor Paling.
Thank you. I supported the previous version and this is an improvement, so obviously I support it. Thank you.
Councillor Parr.
You can't see, can you?
Yeah.
You're on mute, John.
Do we have Councillor Parr?
Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, fully support the application. A real positive move. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Scroggy.
Yeah, I support this. I think it's a great application.
Councillor Wheeler.
Yeah, fully support. It's brilliant. Really good from a health and wellbeing point of view. It's going to help a lot of residents. Really support this. Thank you.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Caroline. Yes, I mean, in the context of the overall scheme, this is a relatively minor amendment to it, but I think it produces significant improvements and significant benefits. So I'm happy to support.
Thank you. Councillor Truscott.
Yes, I agree with the general sentiments. It's a very positive improvement and I'll be voting in favour.
Would anyone like to come back? No, thank you. Over to you, Chair.
Okay, the recommendation, which you'll find on page 77, is grant a full planning permission subject to the usual conditions. Would people like to vote on this?
Councillor Adams.
For.
Councillor Barnes.
For.
Councillor Barnfather.
For.
Councillor David Ellis.
For.
Councillor Rachel Ellis.
For.
Councillor Elwood.
For.
Councillor Hope.
For.
Councillor Keneally.
For.
Councillor Lawrence.
For.
Councillor Miller.
For.
Councillor Paling.
For.
Councillor Parr.
For.
Councillor Scroggy.
For.
Councillor Wheeler.
For.
Councillor Wilkinson.
For.
Councillor Truscott.
For.
Thank you, Chair. That's carried.
Okay, that is carried. So we go on to agenda item 8, which you find on page 80 of your agenda papers. Application 2019/0475, 31 Hazel Grove, single-storey rear extension. This application is only here because it's a member of staff, and therefore, in accordance with the council's constitution, the application has been referred to the planning committee. I don't think it's any necessary for anybody to introduce this, is it, Mike? I think we will go straight on to, I will move this.
Thank you, Chair. I'll second it.
Okay, thank you very much. Caroline?
Hi. Sorry, Chair. So any comments from Councillor Adams, please?
No, nothing to add. No problems. Thank you.
Councillor Barnes.
Support the recommendation.
Councillor Barnfather.
It's a sensible application. I have a friend who lives on a similar property overlooking the golf course, and all the gardens run away to the golf course, and it's a way to enjoy your garden and the views of the golf course. So I support the application.
Councillor David Ellis.
No comments, thank you.
Councillor Rachel Ellis.
No comments, thank you.
Councillor Elwood.
No further comments.
Councillor Hope.
No comment.
Councillor Keneally.
Nothing further to add.
Councillor Lawrence.
No comment.
Councillor Miller.
For.
Councillor Paling.
No comment.
Councillor Parr.
For.
Councillor Scroggy.
No comments to make.
Councillor Wheeler.
No further comment. Thank you.
Councillor Wilkinson.
No further comments. Thank you, Caroline.
Councillor Truscott.
No comments. It looks fine to me. Quite happy with it.
Anyone like to come back?
No.
No.
Thank you.
Recommendation on page 85. It's recommended that planning permission is granted subject to the usual conditions. Would you like to take the vote?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Adams.
For.
Councillor Barnes.
For.
Councillor Barnfather.
For.
Councillor David Ellis.
For.
Councillor Rachel Ellis.
For.
Councillor Elwood.
For.
Councillor Hope.
For.
Councillor Keneally.
For.
Councillor Lawrence.
For.
Councillor Miller.
For.
Councillor Paling.
For.
Councillor Parr.
For.
Councillor Scroggy.
For.
Councillor Wheeler.
For.
Councillor Wilkinson.
For.
Councillor Truscott.
For.
Thank you, Chair. That's carried.
Okay, thank you very much. Move on to agenda item 9, page 88 on your agenda papers, reference number 091/2018, breach of planning control at units 13, 15, 17, Catton Road, Arnold, unauthorised change of use. Would a planning officer like to go into any more detail on this, or shall we just take it as read?
Councillor Truscott, I'd like to introduce a report.
Okay,
please.
thank you.
So the extant planning permission in place for the site restricts the use of the units to light industry, includes machinery being operated between the hours of 8 PM and 7:30 AM, and also precludes the storage on the open areas of the site, including the car park. It's been established that an unauthorised general industrial use, including the manufacturing of shop fittings, currently operating from the site. A retrospective planning application was made to change the use from light industrial to general industrial. This was refused in June 2019 due to unacceptable residential impacts. An appeal was subsequently made to the planning inspectorate. This appeal was dismissed. It's acknowledged that there will be difficulties caused to the business, which employs a number of people from the local area. But by giving the business 18 months to comply with the notice and assistance from the council to find new premises, it is hoped that the company will be able to relocate to more suitable premises without job losses. I recommend enforcement action is taken in accordance with the report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Well, I will move this item.
Sorry, Chair. I'll second it.
Okay. Is it going to be necessary to run through this and asking for comments, or does anybody have anything to say on this, or can we just go straight to the vote on it? Sarah, is that allowed?
Quite like to make a comment.
Okay,
Chair.
let's run through the
I'm
Caroline,
really
if you'd
pleased.
like to run through the list
I'm really
of
pleased
councillors.
that we're extending the time period for this. For quite a long time, the site was almost derelict, and it's now become a thriving business. I do appreciate that it's outgrown its position. So the fact that it's going to be more time to relocate is really good. I do hope that we can find another small business to replace it when it does move. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair, would you like me to move through the list of councillors individually?
Has anybody else got anything to say?
Councillor David Ellis has got his hand raised.
Okay. David, Councillor Ellis, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is a difficult one, isn't it? It shows the difficulty we've got in planning, trying to balance, in this case, residential amenity with the with the business. And because this is in my ward, I've been approached by both sides, by both local residents and Express Shop Equipment. I think, as Mr. Avery set out, they're very clearly the breach of planning has been demonstrated through the retrospective appeal, retrospective planning and the appeal. So I'll be supporting the enforcement action. All I would say is that the firm is keen to keep operating and to work in the area and to working with the council. So I'd hope that the enforcement process, we've said before tonight that the planning department has worked constructively with developers. I hope that the enforcement process can be as constructive, and we can move to a position where we keep the business in activity and satisfy residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes,
Caroline, I think Councillor Barnes and also Councillor Lawrence want to speak on the matter.
Well, are we going to run through the list then?
Would you like me to move through the list, Chair?
Yeah,
if Councillor Adams
generate a debate.
Nothing to add other than I'll be supporting the enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes.
Yeah, I'll support the recommendation, but I think you're dead right. I mean, I remember, I think I may have been the chairman of the planning committee when we gave permission for those workshops to be built on Catton Road, and we always said we was worried about the fact that there's properties all the way around there, people living there, and they've got to be protected. So I think the office have done exactly what we said we'd do in the first place: protect the people's livelihoods around it and encourage development. I think it's just unfortunate that this company's gone a bit beyond the pale, but I think the officers are dead right. We have to find them somewhere else, but this place must stay as it is for the residents in that area. And I'll support the recommendation.
Thank you.
Councillor Barnfather.
Nothing to add, thank you.
Councillor Rachel Ellis.
No comments to add, thanks.
Councillor Elwood.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it seems a shame that it's had to go as far as this with enforcement action, but the council has done everything it can to try and encourage the business at this site to and giving them time. From what the officer was saying, was giving them time to find another premise. So I think the council has done everything it humanly can to protect the business while at the same time preserve the amenity for local residents. So I'll definitely be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hope.
Nothing further to add.
Councillor Keneally.
Nothing further to add.
Councillor Lawrence.
Well, at first I had sympathy for any business that's having problems, but I do notice that this has been going on for 2 years now, and I think that you know, it's already been said that the council's done all it can. The applicant hasn't, and has had over a year from the appeal to move its business. So it's very disappointing. There it is. So obviously I will be supporting the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Miller.
Give my full support to the recommendation. I think enforcement is necessary in this case.
Councillor Parr.
Yes, I support the recommendation, but I'd like to pose a question through the chairman. For the benefit of our wider audience, as we're being recorded, would it be feasible to read out the recommendation, John?
I will read out the recommendation when we come to that point in the agenda.
Right, thank you very much.
Councillor Scroggy.
Didn't add. Nothing.
Councillor Wheeler.
No comments, mate. Support the recommendation. Thank you.
Councillor Wilkinson.
No further comments.
Councillor Truscott.
No comment.
Thank you. Would anyone like to come back on any comments?
No.
Thank you, Chair. Back to you.
The recommendation that you'll find on page 93 of your agenda papers is that the Assistant Director Planning and Regeneration be authorised to take all enforcement action, including the service of any necessary enforcement notices, and in conjunction with the Director of Organisational Development and Democratic Services, proceedings through the courts if required to ensure that the unauthorised use is ceased. Would everybody like to, can we vote on that one, please?
Thank you. Councillor Adams.
Yeah, 4, thank you.
Councillor Barnes.
4.
Councillor Barnfather.
4.
Councillor David Ellis.
4.
Councillor Rachel Ellis.
4.
Councillor Elwood.
4.
Councillor Hope.
4.
Councillor Keneally.
4.
Councillor Lawrence.
4.
Councillor Miller.
4.
Councillor Paling.
4.
Councillor Parr.
4.
Councillor Scroggy.
4.
Councillor Wheeler.
4.
Councillor Wilkinson.
4.
Councillor Truscott.
4.
Thank you, Chair. That's carried.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, what have we got left? Agenda item 10, Planning Delegation Panel. Panel meeting 31st of July, you'll find on page 95. 31st of August on page 97. 14th of August, page, sorry, where am I? 14th of August, page 97, 21st of August, page 99, 28th of August, page 101. Agenda item 11, future planning applications on page 105. And agenda item 12 is any other items which the chair considers urgent. I don't have any other items, so I'd just like to thank you all for attending the meeting and for your contributions, and bid you all a very good night. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Good night.